this is really what the next step is. We have evolved from, the first, this is the very simple definition of the evolutionary stages. The first one is egocentric, which would be the awareness of the small baby. We all know that small babies are very egocentric. All they're aware of are their self and their own needs. They don't even have, and they're very, very young, they don't even have the capacity to be aware that another exists. So that would be the extreme narcissism of the small child. The next level would be ethnocentric. So ethnocentric is when you identify yourself with, you identify with your blood. So then you identify yourself as being part of a particular group, a particular tribe. You identify yourself with being one with all the other individuals that share the same bloodline as you. That's an ethnocentric level of development. And that's very problematic because at an ethnocentric level of development, you are going to be in conflict with everybody who's not part of your tribe and part of your group. That's why a lot of the wars that are going on in places like Africa, the fighting that was going on recently in Yugoslavia, these were ethnocentric battles. The next level beyond ethnocentric is world-centric, but there are two substages beyond that. When human beings discovered the great traditions, for example, when Christianity emerged, individuals from separate tribes now suddenly began to share this sense of oneness or communion with other people who share the same creation myth, right? So when you become part of a great religious tradition, now you begin to share the same creation myth with other people that are no longer just part of your tribe, but now they're part of a much, so then the universe gets bigger and bigger. And eventually, and for most people now at the postmodern stage of development, which is obviously everybody here at the conference, most of us have reached what's called a world-centric level of development. And for someone who's at a world-centric level of development, which is very highly evolved, relatively speaking, that means for most of us, see ourselves as first and foremost human beings. So a lot of you, you see, well, basically I'm a human being before I'm a member of a particular nation, before I'm the member of a particular religious orientation, before I'm anything else, I'm a human being first and foremost. And I'm sure most of you see yourselves as being human beings first, don't you? So that's a very high level of development. So someone at a world-centric level of development see themselves as being a human being who's a citizen of the planet Earth. But what I'm describing for everybody here is a step beyond that, which is when you awaken to this consciousness I'm speaking about, this evolutionary impulse, you experience yourself to be a citizen of the cosmos. But it's true. I mean, I'm not ashamed to admit it. I'm proud of it. Because it's true. And the reason is because you feel that the energy and the intelligence that's driving you and it's motivating you and it's moving you and it's compelling you to care for things that far transcend your personal world and your personal ego are coming from a source that is that one that, with the creative process. And that's when you start to see your own personal life experience, and everything that's happening here from a cosmic perspective. You see the ultimate contextualizing, the ultimate context for everything that's happening is the cosmos itself. And then from that perspective, you see everything that's going on, from your personal problems to the problems we're facing as a global species and everything else. You see this literally as a cosmic event. And your perspective gets pretty big. Now, I want to just, I'm talking so fast because I'm just freaking out about the time here. Usually I have a few hours. I can go through this stuff slowly, but I want to speak a little bit about the energy and intelligence that I'm speaking about, or the creative energy and intelligence, which I'm speaking about, the evolutionary impulse, just so everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about, so there's nothing vague about it. The first place to locate in the human experience what the creative impulse is, or what the evolutionary impulse is in the sexual impulse, because the procreative energy that all human beings experience as a sexual impulse, that's that same drive that is the Big Bang. When you experience the sexual impulse, you're experiencing this in the impersonal force of nature that is commanding you to procreate, and the nature of that impulse is both ecstasy and urgency. And the reason that the sexual impulse is so problematic for people is not because of its ecstatic nature, but because of the sense of urgency. It has to happen now, it has to happen now, it has to happen now. Right? Because I always wanted to know what God feels like. So if you were the energy and intelligence that initiated the creative process and were driving the creative process, what would you feel like? A lot of people, what does God feel like? You know, if you say with me, you're going to know exactly what God feels like. So of course, but the sexual impulse, which is the energy, which is the creative energy, this universal creative energy, this procreative energy, is very creative, but it's a biological command to procreate. So anybody and everybody can experience it. As ecstatic as the experience can be, there's nothing necessarily that profound about it. If you ever met a very creative person or someone who was very driven, like a creative genius, whether they were an artist or a musician or an engineer or a very inspired public servant, but a very creative, a very inspired person, someone who is driven to create that which is new, it doesn't matter what the field is. If you ever met such a driven person, what you'll find and what you'll notice is that they're driven by a kind of an energy that compels them to stay up at night, that compels them to push the edges because they feel, I must succeed at this. And there's a sense and a quality that these people are driven by, which is they are being driven by the unmanifest potential that exists in the future. So great and talented geniuses, whatever their field, feel they must succeed at producing or giving birth to this unmanifest potential that they're aware of, and they're going to work and do whatever they need to do, stay up and lose sleep, you know, is so that this thing's going to come through them. Now, where does it come from? Where does this, and you have to know that human beings are the only life forms on the planet that are driven to create that which is new. We're driven to innovate. Human beings are driven to innovate. Millions of years ago, the innovation maybe happened once every 500,000 years, right? We did the same old thing, glunk, glunk, you know, and then 500,000 years later, glunk, glunk. But everybody knows that the rate of change now is sped up and it's become exponential, and the rate of change is happening so fast, you know, we can't keep up with it. It's absolutely overwhelming. But where does the drive, that human drive to innovate and create that which is new, where does it come from? Because, you know, you can't teach anybody about that miraculous drive to innovate and create that which is new. And you know that there are the most talented and creative people, the people that have created that have made the biggest impact on our development, and, you know, in all levels, you know, from art to music to culture to science, have been individuals that have been driven, right? From religious geniuses to scientific geniuses to great artists, they've all been driven. But where does the energy come from? Because it's not something you can teach somebody. It comes from a mysterious place, doesn't it? And we know that not everybody is driven by this energy. You follow? But these people that are driven by, what does it feel like? There's an ecstatic urgency. So what does the manifest God feel like? It feels like an ecstatic urgency. And if you meet people like that, if you tell them, why don't you calm down, you know, take a vacation, you're pushing yourself too hard, you know, they just look at you like, you know, get off my back. Because they know that you don't know how turned on they are, you know. And even if they are a little abnormal or, you know, or not exactly, you know, peaceful and calm every minute of the day, they're being driven by an ecstatic potential to give birth to something new. And the highest expression, the most profound expression of the evolutionary impulse is the spiritual impulse. And the spiritual impulse is felt by people today as an urge towards consciousness. So the way this is experienced is some people feel a mysterious compulsion to become more conscious. And how this compulsion is experienced is, I must become more conscious. Some people, and certainly not everybody, a lot of people don't experience it. Have you ever experienced this urge towards consciousness? And they go, huh?